everyone, welcome to an analysis of dance where we discuss the movements and debuts of the Billboard dance charts in immaculate detail with in-depth reviews of each debut each week. Well, I pretty much just guessed everything that was going to debut this week. I mean, you expectedly had your big debuts on Hot Dance that were pretty much destructive to a lot of big hits there, and I'm not going to complain considering the quality is more positive than anything. And while, yes, unfortunately the other charts did see a lot less activity than I would have liked, at least Dance Pop actually had stuff happen this week. So in other words, yeah, I'm not going to complain about this week. It's not great by any means, but there's a lot of quality here that does look really promising going into 2026. And considering we just got news that Fred Again's going to release more USB style material across the next couple of months, I think 2026 is already starting off a lot more promising than 2025, a year that's been utter crap for the dance charts and one that I really wanted to dissect when I get to the end of the year. We'll see that when it happens. But anyway, let's start with our top 10 on Hot Dance, where No Broke Boys by Disco Lines and Tinashe is just completely dominating across the board. Still dominating on radio, streaming is going up considerably and sales are still there. This is going to be a long #1 in the next couple of weeks. Probably will end up being the biggest dance hit of 2026 considering Billboard's awful cutoff period, but even with that it still would have stuck at the top for a long time regardless. It's probably going to end up getting there regardless of when the cutoff actually was. But come on, can we please have something come up to knock down Miles on It by Marshmello and Kane Brown at #2. We've gone past the summer at this point, and any opportunities for radio to actually embrace dance music, they're looking really bleak by the time we get to fucking autumn. Especially when Miles on It has next to no radio support anymore, with streaming already on its way out. Seriously, this is the time now for anything to knock it down. It should really be getting there at this point. Hell, that also should be the case with the Days Notion remix by Crystal at #3, which again, no radio support at all. Even with Dior falling, it's not getting pushed to dance Airplay properly, and considering that streaming is already on its way out and it's left the dance streaming charts entirely, yeah, this should be on its way out soon. It's probably going to be stuck at #3 though, knowing our luck. Hell, what I think is way more surprising is that with all of those big debuts in the top 10, Victory Lap by Fred Again, Scatter and Pluck Boy Max actually held its position at #4. And look, this probably was helped by the fact that Fred Again announced his big re-release of USB with 10 new tracks, and I'm really excited to see those there. But really, this shouldn't be all that surprising. Streaming is still on board with this guy en masse, and given that radio is not going to get on board in the same way, yeah, it's showing that he's going to have some natural staying power, and this is going to stick around for a good bit. I'm not going to complain. But what I think is more telling is that it beat out our first of 3 debuts in the top 10 this week, and a song that honestly outperformed all expectations for me to the point where it actually debuted on the Canadian Hot 100, which is insane for this artist. And yeah, it's Crystallized by John Summit featuring Inez at #5. Didn't really get the same massive debut week as Light Years did, and the charts are a little bit stronger at the moment, but the fact that this actually got here at all primarily off streaming and some very limited sales support with no radio to speak of, because God forbid John Summit actually gets a proper radio hit nowadays. Yeah, that's really impressive, and it's proof that John Summit's going to stick around for a good bit. And considering the mixed reception to this song, yeah, some people just cowered at that thought, but hey, I like this track. I'll get to it later on. And on the topic of big surprises, at #6 we have our second debut in the top 10, and one that caught me off guard considerably, Forever by ILLENIUM featuring Tom Grennan and Alna. I mean, this shouldn't surprise me. ILLENIUM's had a big rebound since In My Arms became an actual genuine hit, but the fact that he's got so much streaming support behind this, where it became his highest debut in goddamn forever, that's really telling too. This might actually stick around and be a late hit. I'm not going to complain about that either. More ILLENIUM is welcome here. Now, you think that the rest of the top 10 would struggle to really stick around considering this, but unfortunately, thanks to a certain song leaving the top 10 hard, and another one losing out pretty considerably, Paso Bem Salto by Outlets actually stuck at #7, and God forbid we actually get rid of this track. It's had 26 weeks now, so any reason for this to go is welcome at this point. Let's boot it out of the top 10. We do not need this trend to stick around. But what likely kept it at this spot was Calvin Harris losing out hard, and while we'll get to Ocean later on, Blessings featuring Clementine Douglas fell to #8, because radio threw out this one really fast, and streaming has moved on to other things. Thanks guys, really great to see this lose out over a fucking funk song. Really cool there. I mean, at least in the case of Make Me Feel by Oscar Medke and Number 9, I expect us to have a big rebound next week. That remix with Khalid is actually doing really goddamn well and giving this a bit more radio support than I think anyone expected, and really, it's just down to whether that remix gets credited. Personally, I don't think it should, but hey, the song's doing well regardless. I'm not about to complain, it's one of the bright spots in the top 10 this year. Certainly more so than our last top 10 debut that I don't think anyone expected would actually count here, and that's really unsurprising because for some reason we have Jack's Toy by Jakeneutron featuring Michael Kovach and Amanda Hufford at number 10. I mean, it's unfortunately a reality that fan music's gonna have some staying power, really not welcome there, especially with the quality being consistently mediocre at best, and this song is no exception, we'll get to it later on, but the fact that a goddamn fan song that came out in February of this year was actually able to debut this high, it might be an indicator that this is going to stick around. I don't want that to be the case. Really not welcome here. But moving away from that nightmarish reality, we have our falls and fall-offs, where in the latter category we actually saw some pretty damn big songs leave, and really I'm not going to complain too much about these. Yes, it sucks that Assumptions by Sam Galatri and Tell You Straight by Jiggets are both gone and they're easily going to make the year-end list regardless anyways, but if they're going to take out the long overdue exit of Messy by Lazewo and especially Slow Motion by Marshmello and the Jonas Brothers, which stuck around way too goddamn long, I'm not about to complain. Both of those songs are mediocre to outright bad. They are not going to be missed at all. But as for our falls, really we didn't see a ton that really mattered, and it's really telling that 2 of the 3 this week were songs that debuted last week, alongside Luna Bala by YB Was Good and RS down to 18. Again, I'm not expecting this to lead to the scene going downhill. This song has stuck around for a long time as is, but hey, I'm not about to complain about a Brazilian funk song actually fucking losing this year. But as for those debuts last week, well, okay, Spaces by Bunt, The Chainsmokers and Izzy Biz, who fall into 24, doesn't really surprise me. And considering that the Chainsmokers have really struggled to have staying power this year, this should have really not debuted as high as it actually did. But man, it's really deflating to see Ocean by Calvin Harris and Jessie Reyes collapse out of the top 10 down hard to 17. And unfortunately, given that the stream momentum has dried up considerably, I don't expect us to have much staying power at all. Real goddamn shame. The song is great and deserved way better than this, especially when the alternative is more goddamn funk music getting mainstream traffic, with Accelerata by Smasher and Mozzie surging back up to 12. Can this song have a consistent run if it's going to stick around and annoy the hell out of us? It may be one of the better funk hits that's charting right now, but it's certainly not good at all, and the scene needs to fucking die. But anyways, moving on from that horrific reality that we live in, let's move on to our 4 debuts, starting off with a genuine surprise in number 23, Deep Clear Water by Gryffin and GRiZ?
In deep clear water, gonna let myself heal. In this deep clear water.
Okay, I was initially kind of surprised that we even got this debuting at all. I mean, I'm not surprised about Gryffin charting again. He's proven to have some surprising chart longevity when he works with dubstep artists who actually have a bit of sales support, which was the case here considering that the streaming is not great on this. Sales were what helped get this actually onto the charts, but more so that GRiZ of all names is actually charting again in 2025. I mean, his last charting song In This Well was part of an EP that was alongside his announcement of the retirement of the Alias momentarily, which I initially thought was permanent, but it turns out it was only for a year, and as of last year, he's been releasing consistently since, with this being the song to break him back into the mainstream. And honestly, yeah, this is a really welcome return. I was really shocked by this. This might be the most I've liked a song from GRiZ in a long time. I mean, it starts off really intriguing with the hollering vocal samples of ONR that sound really goddamn crisp against the much more atmospheric production, where it's going for that sort of serene atmosphere that a Deep Clear Water this sort of image would actually convey. And when you have those twinkly backing synths that build into some absolutely fantastic drops that sound really heavy but also don't really ruin the atmosphere of the mix at all, with percussion that sounds way crisper than I expected coming out of GRiZ, yeah, I was on board with this production a lot. And it's clear that Gryffin really helped refine down the basics here, considering that GRiZ can definitely go off the rails when he wants to, and really this sounds a lot cleaner than a lot of his actual solo stuff. And yes, it is pretty derivative of other dubstep songs that GRiZ has made in the past. It's not exactly the most unique thing in the scene or anything, but honestly, in terms of nailing the basics well, with some really welcome vocal samples that make this pretty damn catchy, yeah, I'm really on board with this. And it's really nice to see both of these artists back with some actual genuine quality again, and yeah, this is really welcome to see here. Really damn good song. I don't expect it to last, but hey, it was nice to see here regardless. Number 10, Jack's Toy by Jakeneutron featuring Michael Kovach and Amanda Hufford. Oh, god damn it. Are we still somehow doing this in 2025? Look, I get in the age of YouTube and viral content that fan music for some ungodly reason still has an audience that actually will give itself support to charts on the main charts. But when you have a song that came out in February of this year that's getting a mainstream push as a fan song for the animated comedy series The Amazing Digital Circus, which again is something that I've not been remotely interested in watching. I mean, seriously, this is goddamn Has-Been Hotel all over again, and that's really fitting too, considering that Michael Kovach is here. Which I think the most interesting part is the fact that this is his second charting song on Hot Dance behind Addict with Silver Hound, a fan song made for Has-Been Hotel, so yeah, you can definitely get why he's on here. But yeah, to say I had rock bottom expectations for this would be an understatement. Again, this scene is really not for me at all, and I'm just baffled why the hell this even has an audience. This really sucks. In the grand tradition of fan music, the production sounds like it was made on a shoestring budget with some really muddy and ugly mixing that sounds amateurish as all hell, not helped by the production not remotely changing across the entire track and sounding really bad in terms of dynamics, not helped by the interludes with Amanda Hufford that really feel on the nose and not in a remotely good way. She gets really obnoxious fast, and while Michael Kovach's vocals are not as outwardly obnoxious as they were on Addict, and I can get why some people would prefer this vocal style from him, again, his voice is just way too zany and really backed by this awful circus sounding instrumental to really not work for me. Especially when this mix and production just sounds so goddamn dated to 2014. Why the hell are we still making this sound in 2025, guys? And when you have all manner of immaturity in this writing, where in the grand tradition of fan music they want to fit in as many references to the source material as they can without any sort of cohesion or flow, but all manners of stupid sound effects across the verses, including fart sounds, because we're in 2025 and maturity has gone to fucking die. I mean, at least with Addict there was some actual bombastic production that backed up Michael Kovach. It completely played into the absolute ridiculousness of the vocals, and while it was outwardly obnoxious, it at least played into it really well. Here, meanwhile, yeah, and everything about this just absolutely sucks. The sort of amateurish and really badly produced fan music that once again proves that the scene has no reason to actually chart on Hot Dance anymore. I mean, cool if people like this, I can at least kinda understand the target audience, and it might have worked better if I actually cared about the source material, but seriously, a lot of these songs really can be just confined to their fan bases. They have no reason to chart on Hot Dance at this point. And as someone who has not really seen the show yet and has absolutely no intentions of doing so, yeah, this completely sucks. You can skip it. I really hope it's a viral moment that does not last. Number 6, Forever by ILLENIUM, Tom Grennan, and Alna. But what shocked me more was this. I mean, I get it. ILLENIUM's fan base is really dedicated in the United States, and considering that this was apparently a return back to the Awake era of ILLENIUM with the much more heavier sidechain production with the kicks that sound really suffocating on the mix, yeah, I didn't really feel all that surprised that this actually got a massive top 10 debut. And yeah, the Awake comparisons are goddamn noticeable here because, again, like I said, the sidechain production sounds like it could have come out of 2017, with Alna being the disposable but nearly a little bit better female female vocalist that they use here, and Tom Grennan doing his best John Bellion impression on the hook as he's trying to replicate the same anthemic sound that made Good Things Fall Apart as big as it was. Now, I will admit that there are a few things that don't really work for me here outside of the mix feeling derivative as all hell, with the first being that Tom Grennan is just not really utilized here well at all. You could have given him a lot more to do than just be on the hook. I mean, seriously, he's a bigger name than Alna. It would have been nice to have some chemistry between the two here. And the snare on the drops just does not sound good at all. It really does not fit well with the more suffocating kicks and really just has no impact at all. It really does sound out of. That being said, if the option was more of this or ILLENIUM's utterly misguided slip-ups on the last album that have not aged well at all, honestly, I would take more of this, and it's proof that he can do the sound well in 2025 to actual genuine success. So yeah, I don't think this is great by any means. It could have been a lot better than it was, and it's probably the weakest of the singles that's charted from him this year, but honestly, I'm not about to complain about seeing ILLENIUM get this big, and the song is pretty damn good regardless. I guess I'll take it. Number 5, Crystallized by John Summit featuring Inez.
Out of my teardrops, they all crystallize. Out of my
Okay, so Light Years is still one of my favorite dance hits of this year. Not like there's much competition nowadays considering how bad that the chart has gotten since it charted. With a sort of swerve into a much more intense and dark sounding lane for John Summit, with Inez's unique vocals that really won me over more and more as they kept playing. And honestly, the sort of track that I'm not surprised that the public was a lot more mixed on than I expected. And that's important to note because when I heard that these two were doing a follow-up single, I was at least excited until the mixed reception came in and really showed that John Summit's material this year has been much more divisive than it has any reason to. Seriously, the quality's really been there. What the hell's going on here? And seeing this actually make a play for the mainstream charts and actually debuting on the Hot 100 in Canada gave me a little bit more to be interested in. Really might be a sign that the mainstream's actually fully getting on board with John Summit, and I can expect more singles to debut even higher moving forward. And really, after hearing this, yeah, I don't agree with the mixed reception at all. I think this is legitimately great. The first thing that really stands out is the production here, where John Summit actually pushed outside of his comfort zone again, this time going for more of a stabby and much more darker sounding electro house sound that you would have heard in the early to mid 2010s, with artists like Zedd doing this exact sound back with the Clarity era. And honestly, yeah, I was really on board with this production quite a bit. It does feel a bit weak on the drops, the percussion could have hit it a little bit harder, but that gritty sounding synth that dominates the entire track just sounds fantastic, especially when you have such a spacious mix on the verses that really allows for this production to really hit home for me. But what I think is causing a lot of the divide here is probably Inez on vocals. And look, at first I didn't really like her wailing delivery on the verses, where she goes offbeat a lot more than she should, to the point where the comparisons for me were more so with Sia and Jessie Reyez, which when they were allowed to go off the rails, they really got weird as all hell. But with many repeat listens, I actually truly grew to really like her vocals here, especially when John Summit gives her the space to breathe and really has the sort of weird production choices to make her voice actually fit well here. And when that hook comes in where she's absolutely belting with some really clean vocal mixing, yeah, I was fully on board with this. She sounds great on that hook. But honestly, I was fully on board with this pivot, and while I do expect that this will be a lot more divisive than it has any reason to, with the sort of sound that I can absolutely understand why people will not find appealing, especially considering that electro house has not exactly been something that's revived in the mainstream recently. Yeah, I'm not going to complain about this, especially when it will probably lead to Inez getting more credits on other dance music, and considering how weird some other producers can get, yeah, that's an exciting sign that she might get some much more weirder material to work with moving forward. So yeah, great song. I really don't care at this point what anyone says. I like this a lot. But moving on to dance pop, and thank God stuff actually happened this week, and not just a single debut too. There were at least 2 here, and both I expect to have staying power. And especially considering that both Tate McRae and Doja Cat could possibly see impact moving forward in the next couple of weeks, this might not be a one-time thing. I'm not about to complain about that. But for now, Huntrix is still at number 1 with how it's done, even if streaming and radio are both stalling out on this one. It's probably going to end up being in more trouble than you'd expect moving forward. And And putting aside Fame as a Gun by Addison Rae just collapsing to 15 as it's got absolutely no staying power, and Addison Rae's momentum has really stalled out in recent weeks. I'm not about to complain. That just leaves the interesting case of Breaking Dishes by Rihanna debuting at number 7, and this doesn't surprise me at all, considering it finally was allowed to hit the Hot 100 proper this week, and considering that Billboard's actually enforcing their recurrent rules for once this year with this song actually debuting now alongside a Hot 100 debut. Yeah, that's at least one of the few times I'll actually give them credit for being consistent. Shame it didn't really apply to the Hot 100 this year, but that's a different conversation. But hey, there's another debut alongside Rihanna here, unfortunately, being number 13, Here All Night by Demi Lovato.
On the dance floor under the lights to get over you. I'll be here all night.
So am I the only one who's not really on board with this new era of Demi Lovato at all? I mean, Fast has only gotten worse since I've heard it, and really, I was not expecting this to be that much better either, considering that Demi Lovato's best strengths in rock music that she explored on her last album, Holy Fuck, have just been completely ignored here, in favor of disposable and really badly produced dance music that does not complement her vocals at all. The fact that a cheat code collab is actually aging way better than a lot of these songs is really disappointing for me. So here's the new song that debuted even lower, and I didn't have any expectations that this would be good either. And yeah, it's unfortunately not. I mean, at least in this case, Demi Lovato's given a lot more room to breathe, at least can actually understand what she's saying half the time, and with content like this, it doesn't surprise me. This is more of a dejected disconnect from reality as she goes to the clubs all night to get over her feelings for this past hookup, with a sort of detail across the verses that, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this was based off a real event. It does really make sense in that regard too, especially with the sound of this. I can at least understand why people would like this a little bit more than Fast. Just a shame the writing is so good because the production is really not. I'm already getting sick of this 80s synthwave pastiche as much as everyone else, and with this having no real dynamics between the verses and the hooks, with some really weak bass production and the sort of stock percussion that you hear in all of these kinds of songs where it just does not sound interesting or remotely danceable at this point. Yeah, I'm not really on board with this production whatsoever, especially when the hook does not diverge from the verses at all. It really is just a chore to get through. Shame, because I do like the writing here, but this is once again proving that her production is going to be her ultimate detractor with this album rollout. We'll have to see if she can really rebound with the album coming out soon, because yeah, I'm not on board with this either. Skip it. Anyways, dance streaming, where unsurprisingly nothing interesting happened at all. How It's Done by Huntrix is at number 1, although it is losing, so it's probably a more danger than it would have expected otherwise, especially with No Broke Boys by Disco Lines and Tinashe being by far the biggest gainer on streams at number 3. Expect us to challenge for the top soon. It's going to be a hit. And Latch by Disclosure featuring Sam Smith returned to 14. Whatever. And Dance Sales had debuts that I have covered in mass this entire week. There's no unique debuts here either. The Dead Dance by Lady Gaga is comfortably holding that iron grip at number 1, even if I don't expect it will last in the next couple of weeks, considering how much the single has really underperformed on streaming, kind of revealing when the song is not very good. And the only songs that saw considerable losses are both going to rebound in the next couple of weeks anyways. Jealous Type by Doja Cat at number 12, which will rebound thanks to the album bomb in 2 weeks time, and Just Keep Watching by Tay McRae at 15, which will rebound likely thanks to some added success from the new single. I'm not about to complain either, it's actually growing on me a decent bit. And as for those debuts, well, alongside Call On Me by Eric Prydz returning to 13, the rest of them are not exactly all that surprising here either. Here All Night by Demi Lovato actually saw a massive debut at number 4, interesting. And lower down we've got Forever by ILLENIUM, Tom Grennan and Alna at number 10, and surprisingly Crystallized by John Summer featuring Inez only at 11. Considering how much dance sales support he actually gets normally, the fact that this is not doing as well as I expected is kind of surprising for me. I expected it would have debuted a bit higher for his standards, but I guess the mixed reception did translate over here. Shame for that. But moving on from that, Mediabase Dance Airplay, where unsurprisingly, thanks to this being a much more dry period for dance releases, we didn't really get much in the way of debuts at all, and a lot of the songs that even debuted on Billboard's charts are songs that I've already covered. Thank God this week was far better at the top, with Wait So Long by Swedish House Mafia living up to all my predictions from last week and surging up to number 1. It's got a massive push in terms of spins with triple-digit gains this week, and really I'm just thrilled that this actually hit number 1. The first time that Swedish House Mafia has hit number 1 since Don't You Worry Child back in 2013. Long overdue. Following that is Loosen Up by Hugo and Doughty featuring Preston Harris at number 2, which did also gain spins this week, and unfortunately looks like it's probably going to hit number 1 next week. It just got beaten out by Wait So Long momentarily, and I really am disappointed that it's actually getting a mainstream push now. What was more interesting was No Broke Boys by Disco Lines and Tinashe actually jumping up to number 3, where it's not falling remotely fast at all on spins. Again, proof that a global smash hit that's actually dance sounding is actually doing decently well here. Especially when Disco Lines already has dance airplay support en masse, this doesn't remotely surprise me. Hell, even more revealing that Are You Down by Loud Luxury fell past into number 4 as the spins just absolutely collapsed, as no one seems to be streaming this pile of garbage. I include myself there, I'm not complaining about it leaving. Then there's Dior by MK featuring Crystal, also making a random jump up at number 5 despite losing pretty considerably on spins, although there is also a big gap between it and Move a Little Closer by Dubs and Abby Flynn at number 6. Thank God the much better song is actually doing more here, even if I expect it will fall past it next week. But honestly, I'm much more interested in the big jump for Over You by Nathan Dorr and Shane up to number 7. Again, it's got a massive push on radio right now. This is actually showing signs of making a run for the top 5. That's insane for a Nathan Dorr song in 2025, especially in the US. And it surprisingly actually beat out Waterfalls by James Hype featuring Sam Harper and Bobby Harvey at number 8, again, which is probably gaining up a little bit slower to make its run to the top a lot more steady. I don't think that's a bad thing by any means. But what likely caused all of these to jump up is really the collapse of Save My Love by Marshmello, Ellie Goulding and Avion down to number 9. Again, proof that this song is not really having much staying power on streaming or on the radio once it actually peaked, and considering that Marshmello is now working with another country artist on a much worse song than Holy Water, yeah, this might have been a fluke, and really I expect nothing but awful music from Marshmello moving forward. Not exactly a good sign there either, and that's a damn shame. And finally, and something that has been long overdue to hit the top 10, Our Time by Afrojack, Martin Garrix, David Guetta and Amel at number 10. And really, this doesn't remotely surprise me at all. Once all of these artists rotated out their big songs that were hits on dance airplay, they pushed all their weight behind this, and I expect this to have a pretty considerable upwards momentum for the next couple of weeks. And considering how goddamn great the track is and the fact that all these artists have deserved something this good actually being a hit for a while, yeah, I'm not about to complain either. Great to see this here. But what certainly isn't getting higher comes in our falls and fall-offs, where really the big one is Mad by Martin Garrix and Loathe. Once again, proving my point with Our Time. I'm not about to complain about this going early too, it's not good. Alongside the welcome early exit of The Party by Alyssa Ragu, as another cheap sounding and utterly disposable track that even with American Idol backing her, I did not have any expectations it would stick around. Not going to complain about it going now. And thankfully the falls were pretty much all songs that are naturally on their way out and will probably make the top 100 of the year-end list. I mean, outside of Save My Love by Marshmello, Ellie Goulding and Avion in the top 10, the big story is Won't Be Possible by Tiesto, Old Mob and Good Boys at 25. Again, it's sticking around way longer than I think anyone expected, and considering that it's actually showing some signs of positive bullets, really? This might end up being by far the biggest dance airplay hit of the year based off of spins numbers that I've actually counted recently, and yeah, I'm not about to complain. It's a great track, and Odd Mob really deserves this sort of massive mainstream push. Really great to see. But other cases like Illegal by Pink Pantheress at 29 and Blessings by Calvin Harris featuring Clementine Douglas at 30, they're both comfortably making it too, thank God. The only maybe exception here is Seconds to Sunrise by Lena Leon falling down to 36, which didn't even lose that many spins to begin with, so I probably will expect this to unfortunately make the top 100, but really it's proof that Lena Leon's comeback with the sort of AI generated artwork that's not remotely excusable, yeah, it's on its way out. I'm not about to complain either. And just like last week, we got some interesting comebacks, and really some of these I don't expect to have a ton ton of staying power. How It Feels by Blank and Linny is back at 49, where I'm just more baffled more than anything that Blank of all names is getting a mainstream radio crossover in 2025. I don't expect this to last though. And A New Day by Sebastian Ingrosso featuring Celine Dion came back at 48. Really surprising that this is not actually getting as much mainstream traffic as it should, but given that Swedish House Mafia in general have a #1 hit, this shouldn't be all that surprising. I really expect this will gain up a little bit more momentum once Wait So Long actually leaves, and considering how much the track has really grown on me to the point where I can actually call this one of my favorite dance songs that's charted this year, yeah, I would not complain about it getting momentum here late into its run. Really great song, and I'm glad it's here. As for our jumps, well, okay, these weren't surprising at all, with the big ones being Tesla by Mal P somehow gaining momentum up to 17. Unfortunately, this guy looks like he's going to stick around now. And Ocean by Calvin Harris featuring Jessie Reyes jumping off the debut to number 19. I mean, thank God that Somewhere's actually giving this song traffic. It really does deserve better. But further down, well, Blackberries by Fisher and BB Close also rebound to 22. Again, it's got staying power. I'm not going to complain. And outside of that, well, Born to Fly by Annabelle England and Mary Droppins actually jumped up to 38 with actual genuine momentum. Seriously, if there's a rollout plan for this new album, it's just completely beyond me. Annabelle England has really been disappointing me. Seriously, falling up with Punctual was right goddamn there. You could have made an actual push for it instead of just pushing new singles that are way worse, like this is. And most notably, Hotter by Shermanology and Green Velvet is surging up to 23 as an actual genuinely great Afro house track that's actually made by people of color and unsurprisingly is actually genuinely really good, which considering that's getting released on Nervous Records, that's kind of surprising for me, but hey, the song's really growing on me. I'm not about to complain about it sticking around either. And that's important to note because that transitions nicely into the songs that debuted exclusively on Billboard's dance charts, where for those who weren't here last week, I decided to move over to Mediabase as Billboard's inability to actually stay consistent with Mediabase's dance Airplay segment has not really led to any sort of interest from me long term. But if there were debuts exclusive to this chart that fell amongst the best or worst, I would cover them here. And that's interesting because on this chart, every debut minus Hotter by Shermanology and Green Velvet at 32 was a song that really I have already covered in some form. I mean, you've got Ocean by Calvin Harris featuring Jessie Reyes debuting up big at 25. Again, proof that this is going to stick around on both formats. And the only exclusive to this chart being a song I've already covered in Jealous Type by Doja Cat at 37. Not necessarily for the better, the song's still not very good. And more interestingly, The Dead Dance by Lady Gaga debuting at 40 on Billboard charts alongside debuting at 43 on Mediabase. This is going to have actual momentum on this chart, and really considering that the song is not remotely good, this was a bit disappointing for me, but that transitions nicely into our other big surprise that debuted on Mediabase this week and that I've already covered this week, Forever by ILLENIUM, Tom Grennan and Alna at 43. This is actually already getting a radio push, and while I am a bit disappointed that Refuge didn't get this push instead, which is a much better song, this is showing some really good signs of actually being a genuine hit, and considering that it's a good track, yeah, I'm not going to complain either. But that leaves us with only one unique debut, which genuinely shocked me, being number 50, You Got Me Feeling by Parcels?
You got me feeling like I'm going outside. You got me feeling like I won't even like it. You got me feeling.
Wait, what? Really? We're letting goddamn Parcels, the synth-pop group from Australia that have been building this sort of upwards momentum in the mainstream with the sort of silent majority audience, where I'm honestly shocked that this is the first time that any sort of crossover has actually come from them, and we're seriously giving them their first mainstream crossover in 2025 on Dance Airplay. Considering that their sound is not really dancey at all, this feels really weird to see here regardless. Now look, I admittedly still need to do my deep dive into this band. I've heard nothing but good things about their discography and their performances live, and considering how much I actually really liked a lot of their singles, including their big hit Tied Up Right Now, I've been on board and really interested to hear what they have to offer. So here's the new song that came out in May of this year and is getting a boost thanks to a P&AU remix, and yeah, this is really damn good too. More of a smoother, vibey indie dance track with some more focus on piano and a much more cutesy bedroom aesthetic that actually creates a really nice atmosphere that does stand out, alongside some really crisp vocal mixing and harmonies from the vocalist of this band, and really all of them sound really good here, and they do make this a lot more accessible than I would have expected. Even if the writing here is admittedly a bit repetitive, it does feel a bit list-driven and not exactly in a great way. But as for that PNAU remix that likely gave this enough momentum to chart briefly on the charts, I mean, it doesn't really do a whole lot to change itself from the original, really just amplifying the bass production, especially on the kicks here, that do sound a little bit better, although it's balanced out by the sound being really buried into the ground by PNAU at this point. It feels like they've been recycling this exact same production style since Cold Hard got big for them back in 2022, and honestly that lack of originality means that I do prefer the original over this, even if it is a decent remix. So yeah, not their best song that I've heard by any means, and really I have no expectations that this will have any staying power, considering the sound of it is not exactly something that the dance airplay charts would really embrace. But the fact that they got here at all and the song is still really damn good, yeah, that's a huge win for me. This is a really solid track, really worth hearing if you somehow haven't already. But it's also not the best here. That's going to Crystallized by John Summon featuring Inez, which again, not exactly something that I'm surprised is getting a divisive reception, but I really love this track. I really hope it sticks around, and it's probably showing signs of actually gaining momentum. I'm not going to complain. And the worst is also painfully obvious with Jack's Toy by Jakeneutron featuring Michael Kovach and Amanda Hufford. That song just annoyed the hell out of me, and I really hope that viral moment dies off in record time. It is not remotely good. Next week, well, I'm not really sure what else is going to impact, considering that we don't have any major releases that really stood out to me. Although there is the possibility in 2 weeks' time that both Doja Cat and especially Tate McRae will probably debut pretty high on Dance Pop, so we have that to look forward to, I guess. But yeah, that's all for this episode of an analysis of dance. See you next time.